This is the Final Word Women's Ashes Daily, Day 5. We've never been able to say that before. Day 5 from a women's test match. It did happen. This is Day 5 from Trent Bridge. Jeff Lemon and Cameron Ponsonby with you. The show brought to you by Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. And you're going to tell us about the day's play in 30 seconds, which today might be a little easier than usual.
So England scored 22 runs off the first 4 overs. They're in a good sport. They're going to win. Then Ash Gardner gets Kate Cross out, then Ash Gardner gets Amy Jones out, then Ash Gardner gets Sophie Eccleston out, then she gets Lauren Filer even, and then she gets, who was the last one? Danny Wyatt out, and Australia win.
That's it. That's pretty much what happened. It was surprisingly quick when it came. I mean, not for the first little bit. You know, Cross makes, 11, bats okay for a little bit. Like the first 20 minutes, you go, okay, well, they're knocking off some runs here. Wyatt and Cross get a few from the night watch, get Amy Jones in who could make a 50. Like, you never know, they might be able to push it close. And then once Cross got out, it slips away pretty fast.
Yeah, I think I realised the reality of the situation when I went, Cross has gone all right there. That's a few runs, and she got 11. And I was like, actually, they need another 100, and that's loads.
Yeah.
And there was just kind of that irresistible pull of like cricketing collapses in a chase. It runs all of a sudden become 3 times harder to score, and England against Ash Gardner, they just didn't really look like they knew how to score a run. Amy Jones in particular. To Danny Wyatt, they had sweepers out on the fence. Amy Jones came in, they brought everyone up, and I think she got off the mark of like a 14th delivery. And until that point, it was a case of, I don't know where England are going to find these runs on Day 5 at all.
It was a smart field to Wyatt because she's such a touch player. She likes to get momentum. She likes to hit the boundary, and so they cut off those options for her. Anytime she could get something, it was a single out into the deep, sort of 12th over of a big bash game kind of thing, and she was getting a bit frustrated. You know, she bats up the top in T20 cricket with the field up, and she can go over the top of them. She's not as accustomed to having to find the gaps when everyone's back.
Not at all, and especially from, I think it was in the first or second over of the day, she's absolutely crunched a cover drive off McGrath, and there was that kind of feeling of this is it. I mean, it was as simple as Wyatt or bust for England. This was why she was in the team. She was literally in the team to bat in the middle order, force the issue, and get a runnable 50, 60, 70, whatever it be, and that's what she was needed of her today, and in her defence, she did that. It was just she kind of fell out of her partners at the other end, but it was kind of quite, you got an insight into the kind of ruthlessness of the Aussies when batting with Sophie Eccleston, kind of they just went field out to Wyatt, we'll just bowl at the other end, and it was that case of normally 7 down, 100 left to win. There's an element of complacency that can creep in. You go, we'll do these, but Australia were kind of shit hot on it until the end.
Yeah, there was. I mean, if you're giving away the single per over, they're like, we can afford to do this for 50 overs straight until there's any worry about the runs. Exactly. Yeah. So, and then Jones with the weird stumping sort of situation comes down, sort of plays across it. It goes through to Healy, who fumbles it, bobbles it up, has to snatch it on the rebound, and then dash the bails off. And she should have got back, Amy Jones. I mean, she's got time to swing the bat back. It just stalls on the line somehow, like almost like it gets caught on the line. The noise below us is the hovercraft, if you're wondering, because they always love to fire up halfway through the final word. It's almost like the bat gets jammed on the line or something, or she doesn't quite have enough stretch to get back there.
I know it's out. I know physically and literally and scientifically it's out. Morally, I think it's not out. I don't think Amy Jones should have been gone. I thought she should have been allowed to carry on batting.
Right.
Because no one celebrated. Healy was annoyed at herself for missing the stumping, and just visually, it was fine, and no one really thought about it. Even as you said, like Jones' bat, she was home, she was safe, and then all of a sudden, like the kind of time stopped as her bat was on the crease line, and then these green bails, which are impossible to see because you have a green background, you kind of zoom in, you go, oh, she's out, that's it.
Yeah. And
especially because it was the one ball after she'd hit her boundary. So it felt like, oh, maybe she's kind of broken the shackles now and we'll be fine.
They're just doing laps now with the hovercraft. They're just trolling us with the hovercraft. Yeah, thank you. That's great. Just get right underneath us and just do it in circles.
It's good framing.
Yeah, it's great framing. You know. So look, that was. I thought it was almost like extra flair points with the let it pop up and then like I don't need to stump you on the first attempt. I'll do you on the second. She had time to get back, Jones, and didn't. And that kind of sums up how things went. Had the decision gone the other way, she might have batted for 3 or 4 more balls. Who knows? So maybe it would have made a real difference in the wash-up at the end of the day. It didn't. Eccleston came in, whacked a few, made 10, and then she gets done nicely by Gardner, who comes around the wicket, does the full float in, straighten down the line, hits her low enough. I mean, there's not that much bounce left in the pitch on day 5. She reviews it, but it's 3 reds hitting top and middle.
It was always out, and off spinners bowling around the wicket, it is always out LBW. That's a very passionate belief of mine. She's got a pitch and line and straight, and it's kind of the new age of cricket where I think traditionally everyone said, well, you're bowling around the wicket, it can't be out. No, it can be out, and it's out exactly that way.
Yep.
Where, as you said, Eccleston reviewed, it was always out. It was as dead as it can be, but you kind of are morally obliged to review. And then then we were at the end.
Yeah.
Then it was
the only option then is that Danny Wyatt absolutely tees off and canes them, and she couldn't. She just couldn't find a boundary, couldn't get anything away, and it's Gardner bowling for the last 2.
Absolutely, and apparently, according to the scorecard, Lauren Filer batted for 9 balls for 0. Don't believe that. Apparently I was here. I do not remember any of that. I don't think it happened. She went. Lauren Bell knocked a single, and Danny Wyatt was kind of duty bound to swing for the fences. 1 ball, LBW, game over.
I did think maybe don't try to swing for the fences against Gardner, the bowler with 7 wickets to that point. Like maybe see out that over and attack anybody else. Might have been the go at that stage, but you probably might as well have a shot. But playing across the line, irregular bounce, she's hit in front. Filer was beaten on the outside edge and it clips off stump. So Ash Gardner finishes with 8 for 66. And I mean, if you thought like I think it's rude that Australia have won the Test match after Sophie Eccleston's. I think heroic gets used in sport too much. That was in a sense heroic.
Yeah.
She had to do so much of the work and basically carry that bowling attack on her own. Takes 10 wickets with grind and graft, and then England just sort of hand over an extra 5 to Gardner on the last day and say, here you go. Not only has your performance not won England the Test match, but also you don't even have the best figures in the match.
I think Eccleston's bowled better than Gardner in this match. Like Gardner has obviously bowled incredibly well, and she's even more so given that she's Australia's second spinner. Alana King should have been bowling more, but she's got a blow on the elbow and wasn't able to. And so Gardner has fulfilled this role amazing, and I love it when professional cricketers do this. They're talking about it was really tough to score runs if you bowled at the stumps. And it's like, that is from top to bottom of the sport, it was just the plan here. People kind of realised after halfway through, almost at the start of day 4 actually, because England tried to nick people out at the end of day 3. The plan here was bowl straight, keep the runs in check that way, and just wait for people to make mistakes. And that is how kind of Gardner got these wickets. And at the end, there was procession vibes to those last 3 wickets. It was a matter of when, not if.
And it was also that I think this pitch over the 5 days played really well. In the first 3 days, there was a lot of scoring, pretty quick scoring, and then it got harder to bat on day 4 and 5. Both teams had a turn at it being difficult to bat. Australia managed to get something from Healy in the lower order to get them enough of a lead that it ended up being too much for England. But it became difficult on that last day with the bounce keeping low and all of the rest.
It did, and that kind of took me by surprise because it happened. There wasn't anything particularly extreme. It wasn't like a rank turn or anything, but there did seem to be a bit of a binary shift of no one's getting out on this to 15 wickets yesterday, and then today kind of it just looking so difficult to score. And I think things happen with Heather Knight made a point of it, that this idea of, you only picked 1 spinner and more than 22 wickets in this match have been taken by spin. She's like, yeah, but like Gardner was actually getting us out on our outside edge. It wasn't. I got one that turned, but for the most part, this is a ball that's not been turning, which has kind of been keeping kind of the wicket columns ticking over. I can't believe cricket's a team sport in theory. England have had someone who's taken a 10-wicket haul and someone scored a double century and they've lost. And I think I saw a stat from Andy Zoltzman that is the first time that's ever happened here at Trent Bridge.
Okay.
Maybe not ever.
I hope so.
Yeah. Trent Bridge is a hell of a caveat on that stat, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's been a reasonable amount of Test cricket here, but there hasn't been all of the Test cricket here. Yeah, okay. So, look, I doubt, I know people have made double hundreds in losing causes, but a double and a 10-wicket match, maybe, there might have been a couple, but I can't imagine there being too many. Now, the 5-day situation, I'm sure you could look at it and say, well, they could have squeezed those overs into 4 days, but that would have been a different match had they done so, because things would have progressed in a different way.
It's a bit of a pet peeve of mine when people say, you can bowl as many overs in 4 days as you can in 5, because it's different.
There'll be different overs.
It's different. They're different overs. You have different kind of ebbs and flows in the match. You have one more day of, let's get to the end of this session and let's get to the end of this day. Kind of, let's come back tomorrow. The general kind of wear and tear of a pitch, the kind of mentally, it is fundamentally different. because batting a day, if it's 90 overs on day 5 versus batting a day of 100 overs on day 4, you could say, oh, it's only 10 overs different, but actually it's not. It's all mentally changed, and I know I'm talking kind of intangibles as opposed to reality, but the idea that that doesn't make a difference in kind of the cricketing sense when we literally get bowlers to go out and bat for 20 minutes at the end because the batter is too difficult at the end of a day, that does tangibly change the match basically. So no, of course, the 5th day here has been a positive and was needed.
And Australia go 4 points up in the series. The white ball games are worth 2 points each, so England have to win 5 out of 6 of the white ball games in order to win the series and get the Ashes back.
Yeah, they're cooked, mate. Like, I just saw this stat on the BBC. Australia have lost 8 of their last 110 matches over the last 5 years, so they need to lose more than half of that number again in the next 5 weeks.
In the next 6 games.
Yeah, that's the kind of state we are in. But having said that, I think one of the main frustrations for England coming out of this test was they'll go, we weren't actually that far off.
No.
You can pat yourself on the back and go, wow, we played really well there, and go, actually, we had a great opportunity to turn Australia over there, and yeah, they kind of fluffed their lines to an extent.
Yeah, just a few things. Just some of the bowling and field placements at the start of the 3rd innings, not being able to kill it off, letting Healy get to a half century. I mean, if Jones takes that catch with Healy on naught, maybe it's a totally different result. And then, the way they batted last night, it was that classic end of the day, last half hour of panic, and 3 wickets go, Beaumont, Knight, Siva Brunt all go, and that's it. I mean, that's how England can win the match if those 3 make runs.
I think something Heather Knight's been saying to all the press afterwards, which I found quite interesting, was we were a bit too aggressive on day 3 with the ball, kind of at that last spell where they went 80-90 for none in 19 overs. And I found that kind of a very interesting and more of a bigger admission than maybe she intended it to be, because the whole point of this England team was we play ultra aggressive cricket, that's what we're here to do, that's our mantra. And then they go, we might have taken that a bit too far actually there. And that was that shift of trying to nick people off with the new ball to coming back on day 4 and going ring fields, bowl at the stumps.
It is quite English, isn't it? Be very aggressive, not
that
that aggressive. Yeah.
But and then I think that's kind of, that passage of play is the one that England will look back on and go, we had such a good opportunity here. They let Australia score 80-90 of the easiest runs, having just had their last 4 wickets fall for 15. And in the context of the match, that's where hindsight is at its clearest, is that little period there.
Right. Let's go to the Final Word Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame is the things we liked, sometimes the things we didn't like, the things that moved us in one way or another. What jumped out at you in the, how many overs did we have? 15 this morning?
It's not many. What jumped out at me was the fact we just found out Alyssa Healys has just been playing with 2 broken fingers just on the morning of day 5, as she's just stumped Amy Jones. I think it's her left index finger and her right ring finger.
Yeah.
One of these combinations.
These 2. Goes like this.
And we kind of found that out as she was keeping wicket. So I imagine that had something to do with her going down to 8 with the bat, but I don't. It's a bit. I actually found it almost offensive, the fact that you can keep wicket with 2 broken fingers, or actually maybe they're just fine and she's kind of hamming it up a little bit.
Sure, I mean, Tim Payne, Johannesburg, 2018, with the fractured thumb, but didn't have 2 fractured thumbs, did he?
That's twice as many. That's twice as many. That's twice as bad.
Yeah, that's double the digits. But she also sort of mentioned that people had been gobbing off at her for going to 8, but she also kept it secret that she had 2 broken fingers. You can't have it both ways, Alyssa. Like, is it a secret? Is it not a secret? If it's a secret, then no one knows. And I mean, admittedly, I'll go on the record and say on this show yesterday, I defended the move to number 8, firmly in that camp. But it's weird to keep that secret, because she broke him in the warm-up match, and she came into this game with the 2 fractures and kept wicket and batted.
Well, you defended the move down to 8. I was loosely inferring that she was inferring her.
She's on the run. She's on the run.
Yeah. I basically was like, fucking, Healey's shit scared. I can't go down to 8. No, she's got 2 broken fingers, so that's why she's done that. I think, as you say, I guess you can't have it both ways from her perspective, but maybe from my perspective, wait a day, find out. You never know everything.
So the papers didn't get a hold of that. Nobody reporting at the ground got a hold of that. Speaking of the coverage, I've got an anti-Hall of Fame for the major Australian newspapers, none of whom bothered to send anybody to cover even day 5. Even day 5, when a result was going to happen one way or another. And it was the last day of a test match, and Nottingham's an hour and a half from London. And you can employ people to do that. Like there are people whose job that is who will go and do that for you. And you're like, no, we'll just take Wire's copy. It's fine. Yeah. No need to report on an Australian test match because it's not real cricket because men are playing. They're in the nets.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to be covering the men's nets coverage.
Well, if Marnus and Steve are having a hit, that's where you've got to be. That's the only option. To be honest, when you put it that way, I should have sent a message around the whole of Australia.
Actually,
I'll write copy for all of you in one go.
I'll do it under a fake name for every paper in the. What does the Canberra Times need? What's the Mercury up to? Anyway, that didn't sit very well with me in a press box that had very few representatives from any Australian media organisations today. In terms of a more upbeat way of looking at things, I think. Let's look at Ash Gardner, 12 for in the match, second best figures ever in women's Test cricket. There's been one 13 for, and there were 3 11s, and she ends up with a 12. Just remarkable. In a way, she had the luxury to be the more attacking bowler at times, but she was so influential. I think even more in the first innings than the second, because she's the one when England are flying. When Knight's out there smashing them, makes 50 in quick time, they're flying, gets Knight out. Siva Brunt does the same, gets her out, gets Beaumont out at the end of the innings to make sure they don't add another 20 or 30. I mean, her interventions are crucial.
Well, she's got the kind of spine of England's batting lineup out in both innings.
Yeah.
I think her going Beaumont, Knight, Siva Brunt again yesterday evening was effectively where the game kind of changed. And then this morning, I think CricViz were running a stat that kind of 60% of her balls were landing in a good line and a good length, and that was up from 40% the day before, basically. And when you think about that in context of someone like Scott Boland's, the most accurate seamer ever, I know it's seam versus spin, but the most accurate seamer ever, and he's about 50-55%. So Gardner was going beyond that, and that just showed kind of the confidence and kind of how comfortable she was at the crease, and the fact that England didn't have an answer. They weren't doing anything to kind of be able to hit her off her lengths. They tried that yesterday, and Siva Brunt got out.
Right, our camera's rocking and rolling. We're in a gale up here. It's probably time to call this show to an end before we get blown off the roof, before the hovercraft starts up again. But I'd finish the Hall of Fame by saying we had an absolute belter of a test match. That's where it ends for me. That day 4 is the best day of women's test cricket that I've been at. I didn't get to Perth in January 2014 for what was a great test match. The finish of the Canberra Test in 2022 was amazing, but it was a setup.
Sure.
It had to be a setup, but in terms of just the pure quality of play, when England got it right, and they tighten the clamps, they go through the Australian middle, there's a fight back at the end, they get a chaseable target in front of them, and then Gardner intervenes late in the day. It had everything that you want from a day of Test cricket. It moved in all directions, and I think it's thrilling, and it's vindication of the fact that this format needs to be played across 5 days. Cricket Australia, who are still scheduling 4-day Test matches, by the way, this is the thing. This worked. Your stuff didn't. Sort it out.
That's the perfect place to finish in my head.
Very good. This has been The Final Word. Women's Ashes Daily, Jeff Lemon and Cameron Ponsonby from Trent Bridge. The show's brought to you by Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. All of the Americana places to eat. You've got your Popeyes chicken. They've got your, what was the other one? The Crab Shack. I've never been to a Crab Shack, but maybe I'm going to go to a Crab Shack.
Popeyes, most famous chicken sandwich in the world.
It is.
Get yourself involved.
Yeah, no spinach involved, just chicken. And of course, you can head to Home Run House and smoke a few into the stands. Chuck Westfield into Google, you'll figure it out. Right, that's enough from us. This has been The Daily. We'll be back, we'll be at Adam Collins' wedding with the Wedding Daily tomorrow, and then we'll be back at Lord's with the Ashes Daily for the first day at the men's test the day after that. Who knows what sort of state we'll be in. You'll see. You'll be able to look at us or listen to us then. We'll see you next time.